and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Studies have consistently shown that living at home is better for the overall health of seniors. The research indicates that seniors are happier and healthier in a familiar environment where they can live independently. Today we're going to learn about a statewide program that helps facilitate independent living for seniors. It's called SASH, which stands for Support and Services at Home. To begin, I want to welcome statewide Operation Coordinator for SASH, Amber DeVos. Thanks a lot for being with us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about how SASH helps seniors.
Well, what SASH does is it forges relationships and formal partnerships with the existing community partners all around the state of Vermont. And so a senior has access to services from the Council on Aging. Maybe you could show that slide from the Council on Aging, the Visiting Nurses Association, community health teams, a Blueprint for Health, local mental health organizations. And really what SASH does is they form this formal relationship that allows all of these smaller community providers to more appropriately support our folks and not duplicate services, find gaps in services, and fill those.
And so it must be different for every location.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I mean, it needs to be implemented in the community based on the individual community. Some sites are rural, scattered with little buildings of only 8 units, whereas in Burlington we have a high-rise building with 100 participants all in the same place. So it really does look different, and it needs to look different because our communities are really unique.
And so when did SASH start its statewide initiative?
It was back in 2011. October 2011 is when they did the first big push of the rollout, where we opened up several sites.
And so how have things changed since then?
Well, we keep growing and growing. Almost every quarter now we've been rolling out new sites. Right now SASH is available today to 3,200 Vermonters, so elders and people with disabilities, and again, just to help them age in place and stay at home for as long as possible. In October, we'll be expanding to 3,700, and in January, we should be up to about 4,500 Vermonters with access to our program.
And so how does it work?
Well, the way it works essentially is on a local level, we go in and we forge relationships with the existing community partners, develop a common goal around supporting our folks to stay at home based on person-centered planning. So essentially whatever the participant would like, that's what we're in support of, so that they may remain independent. We build those relationships. We do a wellness assessment, thorough wellness assessment for each participant with our wellness nurse. A SASH coordinator is on site 40 hours a week for each 100 participants. And we essentially begin gathering important medical information. We will reconcile that medical information with a primary care provider and have that available, catch any med errors, those happen a lot, and have that available in case the person has a medical crisis. And at that point, we go into doing transition planning mode, helping that person transition from the hospital to skilled nursing at home through the VNA, and then we build in another transition into kind of wellness, so wellness nursing in the SASH program.
And so that was one of the areas that you identified as sort of a gap, because we were talking earlier and you said it's for a lot of seniors it's cyclical and they'll end up back in the hospital.
Absolutely, and I know it's heartbreaking probably for some of the skilled nurses who are in the VNA to discharge folks because they have to meet certain qualifications. Do they have a skilled nursing need? And so once they no longer qualify, they're on their own. Maybe they've just kind of barely gotten on their feet. Maybe they have extra medications, maybe they have mobility issues, and all of a sudden their support is gone. And that's where SASH comes in, because we stay abreast of the whole process from hospital through Visiting Nurses Association, and then we're ready to take the ball. And we're because housing as a platform for services is it's a good idea because we see our people every day.
Right.
And so, you know, we can do little reminders. Have you taken your meds? Or, you know, don't forget to use your walker. Or what about your O2 tubes? You know, little tiny things like that make all the difference. So that getting discharged out of skilled nursing doesn't mean that someone's on their own. They make mistakes with their meds, get sick, and then end up back in the
hospital,
the ER, the hospital, and it's a cycle that continues. And SASH is one of our primary purposes is to stop that cycle.
So you mentioned that each SASH site in Vermont has a designated coordinator. So we're going to put a bit of the spotlight on Central Vermont for a minute. We're going to meet a relatively new SASH coordinator. He's going to talk about some of the day-to-day services and share some of the success stories of the SASH participants. Right now I want to welcome Kenneth Russell. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, who do you work for and where in Vermont are you working?
I work actually for Central Vermont Community Land Trust, which is a housing developer and manager out of Barre. CVCLT has 3 elder disabled housing sites, Waitsfield and Waterbury and Cabot, and I really enjoy working for them. They're a great company.
And so these are pretty rural areas, so what are some of the challenges that you face?
Time in the car is a real one. Part of what I do is work with our wellness nurse, Boo Smith, and she works out of Roxbury and comes to those 3 places at various times. I come out of Heinsberg and go to those places. So we do spend a lot of time in the car, and I really do enjoy using that time to think through some of the cases that I'm working on. The logistical challenge is real. Part of the solution comes from making phone calls, because you can always make a phone call and remind somebody to take their monthly vitamin D pill or check in on meds, which takes some coordination. But the real challenge I find is in getting to know each community very intimately. As well as I understand Heinsberg, I need to understand Waitsfield, Waterbury, and Cabot areas, because it's knowing the specific people, the specific organizations, the churches that have free meals, the taxi service that's available on an as-needed basis, and the individual family members that can actually do real supportive things for my elders, friends.
That must be very comforting for family members to know that there's someone who's got their eyes and ears to the ground when it comes to their elderly family member, because nothing's worse than getting that phone call in the middle of the night from the hospital.
Right. I usually, when I'm trying to sell the product to some of our folks that are in the housing units, I always say, think of us as your caring, well-organized son or daughter that's there keeping an eye on you, and we'll come in when we need to, but we'll back off when we need to, because we know you need to lead your own life.
So what's it like on a day-to-day basis for you?
It's a juggle act for me. There's actually several things I'm keeping up in the air. One is I sort through a lot of information coming from community partners, from the medical center that's offering this class or this other class, home health that's offering foot clinics and flu clinics. And so I'm sorting through a lot of information and try to make it digestible for our elders. Otherwise, they're just kind of flooded with information and don't know where to start. I run exercise groups or different health education groups. I show up at the senior center and do a little song and dance to get them interested in different things going on. I check in. Every day I'm checking in with my list of priority people, from people that need a little reminder about meds to, oh, let's maybe go check out the senior center to get them out of their house. Reminders about using walkers. I also, like tomorrow, I'll be meeting with those community partners, Council on Aging in Central Vermont, the home health representatives, and the community health team members, which come out of the primary care doctors. And so we'll sit down and we'll share information about the critical ones that are maybe in a hospital situation, and we'll also talk about folks that we want to prevent getting to that stage. So we come up with actual real solutions, real ideas about how we can prevent them from getting ill. And then I'm also on the phone a lot with the doctor's offices. The other day I was on with the pharmacy, and we were going through this very complex list of medications that I didn't know how to pronounce. But the sister of one of my elders was confused about a medication that they kept refilling, and it's like, but she's not supposed to be taking that. So we worked through that little detail and got it solved.
That can be very confusing, because if you're not there in the hospital or doctor's office with your elder relative,
right,
and they say, well, I think I'm supposed to be taking this and this, and it's very confusing.
There's the list that the doctor has, there's
right.
a list that you have, there's a list that the pharmacy has, and that's what I found out is the doctors don't cancel pharmacy items, and so you oftentimes have multiple lists going on. So reconciling them is a big part of that.
Yeah. And taking a look at the medicine that's actually in the cabinet at home and whether or not that matches is a pretty big step.
We talk about medicines in terms of little green pills and little yellow pills,
yep.
you know, not using the big fancy language.
And so do you think that the SASH model is working to help people stay healthier?
Oh, yes. I came from the PACE model, which was another frail elder support service here in Burlington. So when I moved into SASH, it was less of a team working on it. But I've tried it out for the last several months, and I do see a huge solution there for frail elders wanting to stay well or needing to stay at home, get the services for staying at home. So I do think it's working, and the main reasons I think it's working is because, number one, it's done in the home, in the real environment, in the real bathrooms and kitchens and living rooms and community centers. It's provided by what I call long-term trusted people. It's somebody that they can see every day, somebody that knows them by their footsteps coming down the hall and say, oh, sounds like you're feeling a little ill today. Also, it's focused on prevention and wellness, which very little money is put toward preventing problems, and this is the first time we were actually getting a chance to solve problems before they get bigger, before blood sugar gets out of whack, or before,
which is key,
or falling becomes a bigger issue. And the last is all these factors just come together to keep them at home.
Now, we've been talking locally here in Vermont, but Amber, how is SASH in Vermont affecting this conversation on a national level?
Well, SASH is in Vermont affecting the conversation, and it's a big conversation because we are looking at a huge change in our population, a big shift towards many more elders, and really our existing services to support those elders are not big enough and cannot accommodate just the sheer population of folks that will need support.
And SASH has proven that there were some gaps in the system.
Absolutely. And so what we've been able to do is we've been able to bring services back into the housing unit. We use housing as a platform because we have congregate sites where we can bring the services into folks where they're living, where they're at home, the real kitchen, the real bathroom. And what ends up happening is we're lowering costs, Medicare costs, because we're stopping that cycle. We're bringing the services into the home. And we're creating stronger communities because all of those partner organizations and churches that do meals and, you know, the taxi services, they all are so important, and we're pulling them together, tying them together so that they can really effectively support their community.
As a matter of fact, the National Council on Aging weighed in on SASH too.
They did. In a recent article, they talked about SASH and how SASH is a great tool to help folks age in place. And we have gotten a lot of attention, and I think the fact that Medicare has funded our demonstration project, which is being evaluated, is pretty exciting and has gotten folks' attention.
And so if people want to find out more about SASH, how can they do that?
Well, I think the easiest place to go is to our website, which is cathedralsquare.org. You can also call the main office at 802-863-2666. 2224.
And you encourage not only people who could use the services, but also the relatives too?
Absolutely. Yep.
It's great to be able to have some eyes and ears in situations where you can't be, but you know that your loved one is being watched over. It's very important.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank
you
you
very much.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.
For a video copy of today's program, call toll-free 1-888-ATF-3430. Across the Fence is brought to you as a public service by University of Vermont Extension and WCAX-TV.